Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel and continuing with my promotional weekend. First of all, I want to say a huge thank you for all your orders, your comments, your shares. It just means the world. So thank you so much. Now I've drawn the winner for one £25 voucher. And I've announced that in my group on Facebook, which I'll show you shortly. And I'm going to do, because the support's been so amazing, I'm going to draw another winner tomorrow for another £25 voucher. But also another randomly drawn winner, Heather Morrison, 499 on YouTube. You've won a pack of my new blending brushes, these smaller blending brushes for the detailed work. You've won a pack of those. Heather, if you can message me through Messenger on Facebook or via my email, which you can find on my website, you've won a pack of those free. So if you email me, I'll send those to you. And I'll draw another winner on tomorrow, Monday. Now, the code for 10% off your basket is Tracy10, all capitals, no spaces, and you add that to your basket. Now if I just show Facebook and get my group, Tracy Evans Boutique Designs, you can see here I've announced one of the winners of one of the £25 vouchers, and that's in my group on Facebook. If you want to join that group, we have lots of inspiration for you for all your purchases. And I will draw another winner tomorrow. Just bear with me. Oops. That's what happens when you've got too many things on your desk. It just drops everywhere. So I'll draw another winner tomorrow for a £25 voucher as well. So I thought, as it's our promotional weekend, I need to also say a huge thank you to Heidi, the Yorkshire Crafter, and also Nicola Moss. They've been amazing during the weekend, showcasing different inspiration and giving you lots of ideas. And Heidi did a live on YouTube this morning. You should check that out. It's absolutely fantastic. And you should see her previous video where she extends my die, my postage die. Brilliant idea. So if you check out Heidi Walker and Nicola Moss, Heidi, the Yorkshire Crafter, you'll find her on YouTube, and also has a group that Nicola Moss looks after, and Heidi as well. If you check them out in their group as well, they've shared some fantastic inspiration, and I'm truly grateful for their support. So thank you so much, ladies. It really means the world. So I'm going to continue with having a little bit more inspiration for you, seeing as how it's a promotional weekend. And I'm a great believer in education. And it's so important for me that your stamps, your paints, your inks are used. They're not stuck on that shelf gathering dust. If they're stuck on the shelf gathering dust, sell them and buy something you're going to use. For me, I want you to use my products. I want you to just enjoy using them and getting them inky. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfect, just enjoy that process. So what we're going to do is now we're going to do another simple technique. And it does help if I actually got my brayer. There we go. So I've got my brayer, and what I've got here, let's go through this first. I've got my usual Pink Frog super smooth card. There you go. A bit of purple on there straight away. 4 inches and orange on there. 4 inches by 6 inches. So that's my Pink Frog super smooth card. A black matte 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. Let me grab another piece of card and have that one. So that's your matte, and then I've got a 5 by 7 card blank, and all those are on the website. So what we're going to do is I've got my brayer here, and what I've done is you can actually pull these brayers out. You just lift them up and they pull up, they sort of snap out and snap into place. I'm using a Speedball brayer. I've only ever used these because it's got the right amount of sponginess without being too hard or too soft. And I've used these for over 2 decades. Absolutely brilliant. And I've got one where I add elastic bands. Can you see the elastic bands? Small, fine, large. It doesn't matter which elastic bands you use. Now, I want you to feel included. So if you haven't got an elastic band, let me just get my elastic bands. Why didn't I get the elastic bands first? I'm now just reaching for any old elastic bands that I've got. They will do. But reach for any of your elastic bands. Now, if you haven't got a brayer, I don't want you to feel like you can't be included. Add this to your acrylic block, like so. Maybe that one's a bit thicker. And don't be too precise, it doesn't matter. Any old how is absolutely fine. So I've got my elastic bands on there. It doesn't matter which way you want to use them. You can add as many or as few as you wish. I'm not really thinking about it. There you go. They're just elastic bands. So for those of you that haven't got a brayer, you can be included with the acrylic block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Bodacious and Orchid Dina Wakley Media paints. I have these in my shop because I love them, and that's why I stock them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of Bodacious. So let's take Bodacious. I've also got my fan on. Doesn't really help. Let's just turn that off a minute, just so we've not got everything blowing. So I'm then going to take my brayer and I'm just going to brayer through, and then I'm just going to use my brayer and just add the markings here. So just take a little bit more, and then I'm just going to take the brayer again. Okay, so I've got my markings there. Now, if you haven't got a brayer, I would sort of, let's grab a piece of card. Let me just tear this one. I would sort of spread the paint a little bit. Just spread it a little bit. And then I'm just going to use, let's grab another piece of card. So this is for those of you that don't have a brayer, but also gives you an idea if you want to try another technique. Stamp, stamp. Press your elastic bands into the paint, and then see, now I haven't got space to show you. Just press your elastic bands just onto your acrylic block. There you go. And what you're doing is, look at me, apart from getting paint everywhere, you're making markings. And what I'm trying to show you is, hang on a second. Obviously with the brayer, you get a nice flow of ink. That doesn't mean that you can't get a nice background just with your elastic bands. So just make sure you've got elastic bands on there and you move the paint around. Okay, so you've now got your markings on there as well. The only thing I'd say is just wipe your acrylic block if it gets in a little bit of a mess. And then if you've got this paint left over, let's move these out of the way because we want to keep them backgrounds. Move that out of the way. And then just spritz this with water and mop up some of that paint, just so that you're not wasting any of your beautiful paint. There you go. So just mop that up and let that dry. Let's grab some kitchen roll. You could make two backgrounds with those. You could also come back in with your brayer, just with it slightly watered, and add more if you wish. So I'm not going to worry about that. Let's just clean this up. And if I use kitchen roll, it's cleaned up quite quickly and you haven't got too much mess. There we go. So then what we're going to do is knock the water everywhere. Let's just dab there we go. So then I'm going to bring in my card again, and then I'm going to take orchid. So we're going to take some of that orchid, and you're just going to move it around, and then you're going to take the orchid and you're just going to add the orchid. So that gives me my background. I can then, where's this one? I can then bring in, can't pick it up. Let's bring in a little bit more of the orchid. What a beautiful colour. Just spread that out a little bit. I'm not even liking the piece of card. And I can then press my little elastic bands in there. And you can move your elastic bands so you hit different areas of the elastic bands. There you go. Do you know, I really like that colour. So, and then all you do is you clean your elastic bands like that within 2 seconds. Just give them a clean, and you've got them again to use for another background. So you've still got this one that I've just mopped up the colour with. So mop up a little bit of that orchid as well. Just a lovely colour. When that dries, you'll see how lovely it is. You could easily pick up a little bit more of that colour, just so that you've got a piece if you wanted to add a sentiment to. But look, don't think you're going to waste it. Your paint goes a long way. So let's just clean this. Again, I could have another background. I'm not going to, because I'm just showing you some simple ideas of mark making, but creating your own background mark making. Let's get rid of those. There we go. So now you've got your beautiful background. There we go. Just grabbing a piece of kitchen roll, just so that I don't have to dry that, and just make sure that that is dry. There was a little bit of water on there. So you can see I've now got a simple background, nice and easy, very easy to do. And I'm going to take my Abutilon stamp. Now, if you have a look on the Heidi's group, you will see that Nicola did a beautiful sample. That's what inspired me to sort of get my brayer out with the elastic band. She did a couple of wavy lines with the Abutilon on one side. So I'm going to add the Abutilon to my card. So let's take, there we go. And what shall we use? Bear with me. See, you want something that's going to stand out. So let's have a look at our colours in the VersaFine Clair. So we've got, what colour's that? Lilac blue. Let's have a look. Hawthorn rose. Actually, those two colours are rather nice. Let's hope that they show up on the card. Although actually, I'm going to stamp it on a separate piece of white card. Bear with me. So let's grab a piece of white card, and let's take our Abutilon stamp. The Abutilon stamp is TE7. This is the Abutilon, and this is a separate flower, a different flower, just a, you know, a made up flower. So I think I'm going to use Lilac Bloom. So let's use Lilac Bloom. Let's not get messy on the acrylic block. And then let's use a little bit of Hawthorn as well. So let's add this to our white card. Look how beautifully that stamps, just in 2 colours. Just wonderful in 2 colours. Let's grab, I knew somebody was going to knock on the door. So I'm hoping my son will answer the door. I bet it won't. Just bear with me a second. Don't be silly, Tracy. Of course your son won't answer the door. So I'm back. I do apologise. Real life. So I'm going to cut out the Abutilon. Again, nice and easy to cut that out. So I've done nothing too complicated, but it gives you another idea to use your stamps, how to create a super simple background. You can't get easier than that. So let's just go around. Now you can keep this nice and flat if you wish. I like my floral with a little bit of life. That's just me personally. So I'm going to grab a piece of foam that I just found in some packaging. I know lots of you have got all the proper tools, or you might have a mouse mat. And what I'm going to do is just use a circular motion with my ball tool, which if you've got any Pergamano tools, you can use that. If you don't have that tool, don't panic. Just use the reverse, your little scissor handles, and go around in a circular motion. In fact, we won't do it with that. We'll do it with this to prove you don't have to have any special products. This is catching on the hairs on here. So let's just go around. And it sort of breaks down the fibres in the card. And what that will give me is a little bit of a domed shape. So you can use whichever tools you wish. It's entirely up to you. Just gives me a little bit of a domed shape. Let's move that out of the way at the minute because it's in my way. So let's just bring that so you can see I've then got my floral there. But what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of colour, but also just so that it's broken up a little bit. Let me just grab a piece of card. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a strip from this little bit of black card. So I've just got a little sort of strip of card. I've not measured it or anything like that. I'm not having any measurements. And what I'm going to do is just have, so the card that I've cut it from was 4x6 black card. And then I can just have my Abutilon. The black strip just has that, sort of lifts it a little bit away from the background. So let's adhere our black strip. So again, nothing complicated. So let's adhere. No, we won't pick it up. Let's adhere our black strip. I need some more adhesive in my little bottle. There we go. Let's add that here. Now, let's just bring in this other background. Do you know, I can't pick anything up. But you've got this background that we did with the acrylic block. So this could go here as well, with a little black strip along here. So whichever method you've used, I'll make another card out of that anyway with the Abutilon. But whichever method you've used, you've got a mark, you've created some marks, and it creates a fabulous background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to colour this a little bit, which, let's be sensible about it. I wasn't going to colour, but I do want to colour, I can't help it. And really you would have added the dimension to this after you coloured. So let me just grab some pencils. So, what colour are you? No, I don't want that. That I will have. There we go. Now I'm using my Prismacolor pencils. It doesn't matter what medium you use to colour your flower, whichever you prefer. For my dark colour, I'm using Black Grape, PC 996. So I'm just going to use some of the Black Grape. And obviously, Tracy should have really coloured first, but you know that now, and you'll know that when you're doing your project, which is the main thing. So let's come down here. So I'm just giving this a little bit of colour just with my Black Grape, but don't worry, I can easily add a little bit more life to it once I've finished colouring. So that's the first colour, my dark colour. And I'm then going to come to Parma Violet, PC 1008. Come in with my Parma Violet. And just using a light touch. I'm not pressing down and I'm not applying that pigment too firmly. I'm not scratching at the card. I'm just adding it really gently. And then I'm going to come in with my Lilac PC 956. And really, when you apply the colours this lightly, there's not much sort of difference in the colours until you lay down more of that pigment. So we obviously need to lay down more of that pigment to give it more life. So I'm going to come back in with the Black Grape 996, and I'm just going to come in with a little bit more detail with the Black Grape. And I'm still going to use that circular motion, but I can bring in a little bit of a darker line here, just where it sort of comes under. That's better. I'm using a circular motion to apply my pencils. Lovely. Just apply a little bit more darkness down there. So then I'm going to come with my mid colour, which is the Parma Violet PC 1008. I won't repeat this again afterwards. I just repeat it a couple of times because I don't know about you. Sometimes when I'm watching a video, somebody will say something and I still have to rewind it. So I just say it a couple of times. So it's not trying to irritate you. And then I'm going to use my Lilac PC 956. You see, with all these sixes, I get confused. I mean, it doesn't take much anyway at the best of times. So let's just add a little touch of that. There we go. And I'm still going to build that colour up. And I always like to keep my colours in order. It's just something that I do and I like doing. So I'm going to come in now. I'm going to come in and lay down a little bit more of that pigment. Just coming in with a circular motion and laying down a little bit more of that pigment. There we go. Then I'm coming with my mid colour. Doesn't matter, you can, you know, you may have done the background in totally different colours. That's absolutely fine. But I'm going to show you how you can apply the same technique, but how a different colour palette changes it completely. So I'm going to show you that as well, because I want this weekend to really concentrate on some inspiration. It's so, so important to me that you use your product. So let's come in and just apply a little bit more. And I can still come in and let's bring in a little bit more now. A little bit more of that pigment. And you can see I'm going really dark where the top of the Abutilon is. But I'm keeping that top sort of cup all white because it just makes everything else pop. So let's come down a little bit further. Then I'm going to come to my mid colour. There we go. And then I'm going to come to my lightest colour. There we go. And then I always do this just so that there's no harsh line at the bottom. I come in with my white Prisma and just blend the edges of the purple, just so that it's softened a little bit and it's not quite so harsh. What I'm going to do then is I'm still going to come in with this, the darkest of my pencils, and just add a few sort of dark. The Abutilon has some dark lining, you know, it has lines on it, and that's why you can see all these markings on my stamp. So just adding a few little dark lines. Now what I'm going to do, just to highlight those lines a little bit more, I'm going to come in with my Posca pen. Look how that's dried. You see, I've got that as a, you know, part of a background piece. Let's just make sure. Now I'm using my Posca pen and I'm going to come in sort of very lightly and just sort of add a little bit of sort of squiggly lines that following some of the pattern on that Abutilon. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's just, it's there, and it just brings a little bit of lightness to the Abutilon. Okay, so then let's bring this in. Let's grab some black cotton. So we'll bring in some black cotton for texture. And what I'm going, this is just normal sew-all cotton. Don't get any polyester on because you'll pull your hands off. So this is just cotton sew-all thread. And I'm just pulling that out. And then I can just sort of mess that up a little bit and give it a little bit of texture. Now, you don't have to have your Abutilon shaped if you don't want to have it shaped. You can have it completely flat if you wish. I'm just trying to show you some simple ideas. So let's add what What is that doing? It should be okay. Right, so let's just, I was going to say, look at this. Let me grab a little bit of a wipe. You see, this should be fine because I did push it up. Right, so I'm now going to faff with glue. So I want to use my pin flare just to give it that sort of domed shape. You don't have to do that, but I do love having that on there, just giving it a little bit of shape. Nice, simple idea. Let's push this up here before it starts playing on me again. And then we can take, where's the stamp? So on our stamp set, so if I bring in the Abutilon stamp set, I've got the word Abutilon. So we will use that. And what I'm going to show you in the same video is how we can make it look different. So do you remember this little bit that I just coloured on? I've now got a little bit of card now for my sentiment or wording. Let's use the black Nocturne ink. So let's use some black Nocturne ink. And it's up to you then where you pick. You can just pick something that's got a bit of the colour on, or you can turn the card 20 times if, like me, you can't make your mind up. Don't do it straight in the middle, Tracy. There we go. And I'm stamping onto paint. So what we have to remember about that is we really do need to give that a little bit of a blot or a dry, because you're going straight onto that paint. Let me show you. Can you see? But if you dry that with your heat tool, it'll be absolutely fine. There we go. So I'm then going to cut this out. You see, I'm going to have to dry it because I don't want to take the risk of smudging that. And I can see it shining. So I just want to make sure that that is completely dry, because obviously the surface that I'm stamping on is no longer porous. And that's why, you know, the VersaFine Clairs are designed for a porous surface. That's it, I've got no ink now. Wonderful. That's exactly what I want. Let me just open that drawer and we'll now cut this out. But it's always worthwhile creating an extra few pieces for things like this. Then you've got something that coordinates beautifully with your whole project, which is what you want. And what I'm going to say is, Tracy, that is not straight. There we go. And in fact, I don't want it that thick. You two can spend more time cutting out the one word than the whole card. So let's bring this in, and then I can add this to here. Just like so. So nothing complicated, nice, simple idea. Not every idea has to be overly complicated. But then, if you want to sort of finish it off, I can add my little bird from A Myriad of Designs, TE44. And it's a well-used little bird because he's falling off the acetate. So if you've got a little stamp like me falling off the acetate, all that means is that your mucky fingers have been picking it up and you've got ink debris on there. So you can either give it a little wash, or like me, just use a little bit of a wipe. You'll see a little bit of dirt come off there, And then we can use our black ink, our Nocturne ink. Then I'm going to add the little bird, like so. And he's almost grounded because he's got those purple lines just underneath there. Then I'm going to take a little bit of shading just because it's me. Now, because this is domed, it's actually naturally got its own shading. So it works beautifully. So let's take a little bit of water. Let's give him a little bit of grounding just so he doesn't look like. And then let's have some Posca pen. Now be mindful of your wording. You can easily put a piece of card over there, but just be mindful. Just because you don't want to cover up any of your lettering. So if you place that then onto a black mat, so let's add that to a black mat. And the mat matches perfectly, and it's true black card. There we go. Let's lift this up. Let's add this to a 5x7 card blank, like so. And now for those of you that don't like long videos, you can stop here. I'm going to carry on and show you how you can make this look different again, because that's what this weekend is all about. So you've got a beautiful card there, nice and simple, and it's just lovely. Really love that. You can even add some text if you wish, but I like it like that. Now, what if you want it to look a little bit different? Well, this time I'm going to grab a piece of craft card, 4x6, no different than the other. Honestly, I've got that many stamps here. So now I've got a piece of craft card, 4x6. Sometimes I can never tell. I think that's the right way. Who knows? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to frantically look on my desk and wonder where everything is, because I just keep dumping everything. Right, okay. So now I'm going to use some paint, but we're going to use white. Now, you'll have to excuse me because my paint is a little bit thick. So I've turned my fan off because I've had this ages. There we go. It's a nice amount there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my other brayer that's got loads of paint on, and I'm just going to flatten this out a bit just so that it's not quite so thick. Okay, and then I'm going to take this brayer with the elastic bands on, and then I'm going to just add the white lines just going down. Okay, so I've now got my white. It doesn't matter if you've got a blob or it's a bit thicker somewhere, that's absolutely fine. You can also then use the rest of your paint if you want. You can use that on a piece of white card, and I'll tell you why. Let me just look at this. I've still got loads of stuff on here. If you've got loads of white paint, I'm just going to grab a piece of craft card, and I'm just going to brayer that white paint on there, just so that it's not wasted, and I can cut it 4 by 6 inches. So I'm applying all that paint on there because it's sacrilege to waste the paint, and then I'll show you how we can just change that. And this is how other ideas are formed. So let's just clean that up. And if I use a piece of kitchen roll, the paint doesn't smear everywhere. It just picks it up. I'm not wiping it with a wipe and then it doesn't smear. Okay. So then what you could do with this bit that you've just put the excess on, you could then take your Bodacious. Take the Bodacious, nice good big dollop of Bodacious. Then take your orchid. There we go. I'll take my normal brayer, which has just got the paint on. I've not even cleaned it. So I'm then going to use my brayer. And then I can just add that. Oh, look at them colours. Oh, it does make me happy, stuff like this does. And then when it's drying a bit, I'll show you how we can cut it. And say, for instance, oh, you want a little bit more orchid. Was that Bodacious or orchid? Nobody knows. Let's just put it here and then I'll know. Yeah, that's orchid. So if you want a little bit more orchid, just come in and just add a little bit more orchid. And keep braying over because that's what adds your texture. Okay, look at them colours on that brayer. So we'll just leave that on one side. And what I'll do is, before the video finishes, she says, trying to remember, I will try and cut that 4x6 just so you can see what it looks like. And you can see that clean up, it's not complicated at all. Just your kitchen roll, a little bit of water, done. Let me show you the background that we mopped up the inks from the other one. So you've got a lovely background there. So you've still got, whichever method you've used, you've still got one background like so. So let's bring in the white here, like so. So you've now got this on white card. Doesn't matter which way you use it, there's a nice lump of paint there. It's absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do then, I'm then going to use my Shady Lane and Verdant. So if I ink this now with Verdant, add the Verdant. Let's clean up a little bit of ink off my acrylic blocks because I actually clean them, believe it or not. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of the Shady Lane. I need another piece of white card to just stamp our two green colours. Oh, I do love it in green. So let's take our green. And I'd just love to show you how versatile stamps can be. Especially when you've got a few core ingredients, whether it's your ink pads, paints. I like a little bit of both. When you've got your core ingredients, it works a treat. And the more you use the products, the more you end up using them because you come up with more ideas the more you use them. And you'll make a total mess like me on your desk. You start tidy and then you tidy up. So actually part of the hobby is tidying up, making a mess, tidying up, making a mess. That's part of the hobby. So then we'll take chartreuse. We'll take, I want to like a mossy green. What are you? Marine green? Marine green. Have you not got a mossy? I prefer a... That's it. Moss green. So what I've got now is my dark, medium, light. Look at my state of my pencil. So then I'm going to use the dark colour, which is Marine Green, PC 988. And again, I'm going to start with the dark colour, just as before. And once you've coloured it once, you really sort of get used to where everything is. There we go. So just colouring that with my dark green first, although it doesn't look dark green initially. So then I'm going to come to my moss green PC 1097. Just come in with that. Sometimes holding the pencil a little bit higher up stops you from pressing too hard. And then I'm going to come with the chartreuse, which gives some of that brightness to that design. And you can see I just lay that pigment down initially. I don't have any depth or anything. So let's come it in now. And let's just colour right up to those edges like before. And then down here. So again, just using that circular motion. And this may not be dark enough. I may need to add a darker colour, personally. I'll have a think. I think I'm going to need a darker colour. But that's what playing, it helps you decide what colours you want to have. Now with each colour, you go into the previous colour. Now let me just look at my greens again. I want something a bit darker. They're too close to each other. What colour are you? Dark green. There you go. That's a hint. Dark green. But it isn't very sharp. So let's give that a little bit of a sharpen. There we go. I think this will just give it a little bit more oomph. Personally. And then I can actually see some difference with the other colours. Yes, that's much better. Much better. But I'm only able to do that because I've not pressed too hard with the previous colours, so I can get away with that, so it's ideal. And let's bring in a little bit more of that darker line. Let's bring in a little bit. There we go. So I don't want that one. So this was dark green PC 908. So then I'm going to use the moss green 1097 to come into that dark green. That's better. I can see much better. And then with that chartreuse 989, spot the person that knows chartreuse number off by heart. That's because I use chartreuse quite a lot when I'm using greens, because it just gives that little bit of brightness. So then I'm going to come in with that dark green again and just add another layer of that colour. Now, don't rush your colouring, just take your time. So I'm just adding some of these dark lines as well. So let's go down here. And the more that colour, you know, the more you add the pigment gently, it starts to smooth out because we fill out those sort of, it's not fill out, fill in the white areas of the card. So this pencil now is going into the dark colour. But I'm not pressing really hard. I'm laying that pigment down quite gently, but it's coming to life now. There we go. I do love the green. And then let's bring that down a little bit further. There we go. Then I'm going to come with my chartreuse. Just to blend in to the other colours. Oh, I do like the greens. And then I'm going to use, just like before, the white pencil, just to come in and just soften the edge of my, I'll pick up some of that green and it just drags that green out, just so that I haven't got too much of a harsh edge, just to that. I always keep the white out. So you can then sort of, like we did before, you can use your sort of dark pencil just to add some darkish lines. And then come in with your Posca pen. Now, when you come in with your Posca pen, just remember just to get rid of any waxy debris from colouring in the previous card. So then I can just sort of add a few touches of that white. A few little dots to the bottom. And just add a little bit of white. Really shows up on that dark green. Again, then you can add a little bit of life however you wish. You don't have to have these tools. You can also use your hand and just gently sort of manipulate that card. Look, no special tools, look. You can just do it with your fingers. So that's still got shape. So let's remove that. So I'm showing you now how your card can look a little bit different. So what I want is I want a strip of white card now. There's always something I want. Just let me grab a strip of white card. So we'll just grab a strip of white card. But before we add that, what we'll do then is we'll go to TE11. Let's grab TE11, which is Background Elements, and a stamp set Tracy cannot get enough of. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Shady Lane VersaFine Clair. And I'm just going to add some little touches, oh yes, lovely, of that green ink. And I'm not thinking about it too much. I'm just giving, you know, sort of a spread of text. So let's add a little bit there. And if you're unsure, just place your Abutilon around about where it's going to go. And then you can judge where you would like a little more text. So let's add a little bit there. Bring in the Abutilon again. And I think we've got enough at the moment. So I'm going to take, no I'm not because I can't pick it up, my strip of white card. Let's just grab, make sure my hands are clean, which they are not clean. So I'm going to add my strip of white card just here. There we go. And do you like the concentration? I was going silent then just to the concentration. Now we've got that paint on there, haven't we? We've also got this ink. So let's just give that a little bit of a dry, not too much. And then we can bring our Abutilon, and then if we get some white cotton, and then sort of pull out a long length. That's it, pull out a long length each time. And then you've just got some texture, added texture to your card then. I'm going to use my Pinflair. Let's add the Pinflair. Just so it keeps that domed-ish shape. Make sure that the Pinflair makes contact with the card, just so that it definitely adheres. And then we'll take the Abutilon text again, which nobody knows. Oh, there it is, look. And then we will stamp this. I'm trying to keep my acrylic blocks clean. I'm not doing very well, but I keep trying. So I'm going to use Shady Lane. And I'm going to stamp directly onto this white card. There we go. And then I'm going to take my little bird, just like before, and we'll use our black ink. And add the little bird. And then we'll give him a little bit of grounding. I know where I keep getting the ink from. It's off my stamp because I keep leaning my hand on the stamp. So we'll just add a little bit of grounding. Again, this has got a natural shadow. So we'll just add that. No idea where I've put the paintbrush. Maybe I put it back. And then we'll just add a little bit of shading. Just lovely. Let's clean that up. And then we're going to add some splatters to this, just like we did in the previous one. Again, remember to cover your word up when you're adding your splatters. If you're unsure that you're going to sort of hit that area, you can just put a piece of card over that. Okay, so now we'll add this to a white mat. So that was 4 by 6. The white mat is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. I'm using Pink Frog Super Smooth, even for my mats and layers, just because I like a nice sturdy card. So let's add, I'm going to pick this up because I find it easier. So let's just, there we go. That's it. Let me just wipe this up here. Oh, it's okay, it's dryish. So I've got that on a white mat. I'm then going to add it to another piece of craft card, 4.5 by 6.5. Let's take this. So add that to here. So I've got an extra layer on this one. And then add that to a 5 by 7 card blank. Now, it's quite, it absorbs quite a lot, the craft card does, so I'm just adding a little bit more adhesive. There we go. And if I lift both cards up now, you can see the difference it makes. So we've got one in the purple on a white card and one in the green on craft card. And that is your little fun little ideas that you can use. You can adapt the backgrounds however you wish. But I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you're enjoying the weekend. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.